To our combined council and committee of the whole meeting for November 7th. I'm going to ask Councillor Tessie if she could read our land acknowledgement statement.
La municipalité de Nipissing-Ouest reconnaît avec respect que nous sommes réunis sur les terres ancestrales des peuples Anishinaabe, sur les territoires traditionnels des Premières Nations Nipissing, Temagami et Dokis, désignés par le traité Robinson-Huron. Nous honorons leurs liens historiques avec les territoires et nous valorisons leur contribution considérable au façonnement et au renforcement de nos communautés. Ce faisant, nous réaffirmons notre engagement et notre responsabilité envers la réconciliation et l'amélioration de notre compréhension des peuples autochtones, locaux et de leur culture.
Thank you. Next item is a declaration of pecuniary interest. And I'll ask if there's any now, or if there's not, as we get to agenda items, if there is something that comes up that you want to declare, please do so at that time.
Moved by Councillor Courchaine and seconded by Councillor Tessier. Be it resolved that the agenda for the Council and Committee of the Whole meeting held on November the 7th, 2023 be adopted as presented.
All those in favor? Carried. And just for folks online, as you can see, we have our Councillor Dan Gagne is joining us, as well as Mayor Rochon is joining us through Zoom with us tonight. So they're not in the room with us, but they are participating through that method. The next item is the addendum and the agenda. We don't have an addendum this evening, but we do have an agenda to adopt. We just did that. Still learning. Sitting in the big chair. Okay, that's great. So we have our agenda. Next item is delegations and petitions. And tonight we do have a delegation with us. It's the West Nipissing Pickleball Club. And we have Simon Dumont and Peter O'Bonsawin who are with us to present. If they'd like to come forward. We have the podium there. That would be great.
Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and councillors. My name is Simone Dumont and my co-presenter is Peter O'Bonsawin. On behalf of the West Nipissing West Pickleball Club, I am here this evening with my fellow members, including our club president, Marsha O'Connor, and the executive members to present a proposal to restructure an East End tennis court into 4 pickleball courts. We thank you for accepting our request for a delegation and for considering our proposal. Here's a little background information. So pickleball is the fastest growing sport in North America, and it is thriving right here in West Nipissing. It was first introduced in West Nipissing in 2015 by Renée-Anne Paquette, who was recreation director at the time. Then in 2016, Paul Goulard was instrumental in promoting the sport so much that in 2019, the West Nipissing West Pickleball Club was established. Over the years, we have played at our local high schools, at the Community Health Center, at the Marcel and Jane Labie Arena, at the Werner Arena, and at the tennis courts. The West Nipissing West Pickleball Club is an organized club that is governed by our bylaws, constitutions, and policies that we have. Our mission statement includes 1, promoting pickleball as a sport for adults at all skill levels in the West Nipissing area, to provide opportunities for club membership to interact socially, to work with the Culture and Recreation Department to improve and expand playing facilities in West Nipissing, and where applicable, to assist and advise the Culture and Recreation Department with a municipally organized pickleball program. Our club is a member of Pickleball Ontario and Pickleball Canada, and we're affiliated with these organizations who are governing pickleball in Ontario and Canada, respectively. Next slide, please. What is pickleball, in case you don't know? Pickleball is at its core a fun and exciting indoor and outdoor sport that combines elements of tennis, badminton, and ping pong. So the game is played on a court similar to, but not the same as a badminton court, with a lower net similar to tennis, and with what looks like an oversized ping pong paddle and wiffle balls. We have balls for some indoor play and balls for outdoor play. They're made a little differently. So why is this sport growing so much? Well, it's a very fun sport. It offers a parallel sport for tennis players. It has a shorter learning curve than other racket or paddle sports. It has less physical impact on the body. It can be played both recreationally and competitively, and it's attracted to all ages. It's important to note that there has been a dramatic increase in places available to play across Ontario and Canada, although supply of facilities is not keeping pace with the demand for play. And that is why we are asking that the East End tennis court be restructured into 4 pickleball courts, so to better accommodate our growing membership and our community. We're about 74 members here in West Nipissing at the moment, and it's increasing always, continually, on a steady basis. So it's really great. Next slide, please. I could show you about 100 slides that show the benefits of playing pickleball, from medical doctors to other health practitioners to mental health, social health, and so on. I'm not going to spend too much time with it. We can go to the next slide, please. Pickleball does increase your heart rate, boosts your metabolism. It improves your balance, your coordination, your agility, your reaction time, flexibility, your strength. Okay, and so even one psychotherapist, Dr. Elgin, states that it does have an impact on cognitive health, and so it could help with dementia and Alzheimer's and stuff like that. There's thousands of articles out there, but I think you get the idea that any physical sport can also help you mentally. It can help with depression. It can get you out of isolation and so on. The next three slides kind of show us having a good time here. We played in April. As soon as the snow is off the courts, we're out there playing. We played in December. I think last year we played until December 11th even. You'd see a bit of snow in the background, and you see it kind of represents the social benefits and so on. So it's some of our players out there on the courts. And the next slide, please. And our purpose, well, so the purpose here again, it's not only to create more pickleball courts, but to create courts that are designated solely for pickleball play. We want official size courts that are safe for the players. By restructuring and gaining courts, we would be able to accommodate different skill levels. Beginners may improve their skills on some courts, while more advanced players may compete at higher levels of play on other courts with proper nets and court dimensions. We have players who compete at community and provincial levels already in our club, and they do very well. We're very proud of them. Next slide, please. More and more of our players are going to North Bay or to Sudbury to play, and let's face it, once they're there, they go to a restaurant or they go shopping or, to different stores and that. What we would like to reverse that and get players from out of town to come to West Nipissing to play on our beautiful courts and to drop, into our stores and restaurants and so on. Similar to the West Nipissing Council's vision, we too, and I quote, want the well-being and interest of the municipality at hand. For those of you, the next slide, please. I'm not going to spend too much time on the next slide either, but it's just more statistics as to what pickleball is. I like the last one. They talk about pickleball being in 70 countries already around the world, and they need to be playing in 75 countries in order for it to become an Olympic sport. So, it's not something that's going away soon. I think, investing a bit in the sport of pickleball is, it's not a short-term thing, people will still be interested in playing this as time goes on. And again, it just gives the number of people, maybe the first line by 2023, who they estimate will be playing pickleball, 40 million, and so on, how it's becoming increasing in popularity. So it's just to prove that it's a long-term thing. Next slide, please. Oh, I don't know how this slipped in there. Let me digress a bit. So here you see indoor facilities. I guess eventually our big vision is to have an indoor sports facility in West Nipissing. And I understand it can't just be for pickleball. We're too small an area to just be that selfish. But we could have badminton in there. We can have walking ovals. I know there are a lot of citizens in Sudbury who like walking in the wintertime, and it would be a safe place for them to go and get their walking in. There could be badminton, there could be areas, or the Special Olympic athletes could maybe do some training in there. It could be for volleyball. We have a couple of volleyball teams in the area. I think they could benefit from something like this. So anyway, that's for another day, however, but perhaps Councillor Rivard, who is chair of the Community Service Committee, would invite us some time to entertain some of our ideas and so on. Thank you. Okay. And the next, and this is just like, we did a bit of research into some of the membrane buildings that are there. We're not necessarily looking for brick and mortar. That's very, very expensive. But there are a lot of membrane type buildings that are more economical, let's say, and that would suit the purpose, I believe. It's a matter of doing a little more research. But that's for another day. Getting back, thank you, Melanie. Here, getting back to restructuring one tennis court into 4 pickleball courts. Here is an illustration how one would fit alongside the other. It's a really smart and clever way to represent the transition. And talking about clever and smart, here's Pete, continue the presentation.
She nailed it. Hello, my name is Pete Obonsu, and I took the privilege of getting you all costing so you wouldn't have any surprises. And as you can see, I don't know if on the next slide there's the price structure, but it's a very inexpensive project we're asking for. Right now, we're playing on tennis court that has grass that grows through it. It's a little bit embarrassing and very dangerous. We have to walk 50 feet to go get a ball. So now we would walk 7 feet to go get a ball. And we're taking one tennis court, which we never see other tennis players there, by the way. When we're there, we're 20 people there, and there's never anybody playing tennis. So we don't want to take away their tennis courts, but we're asking for one. And we broke down the prices, which is very, very affordable. And these are all top-notch, safe, top products. I can leave you all the quotes, the warranties. This is done professionally. And I'm sure we could even cut some costs down by using the city manpower to maybe do the fences and the posts and stuff like that. So if you look at it, the restructuring for the paint and the sand, which makes it a professional court, would be $26,000. That's using the pavement that's there. I took the privilege of examining it with a professional. It's very good on the east side. We would not need any resurfacing, simply painting and fixing it slightly. So that's the $26,000. And then if you got the $10,000 for fencing around, also to put some wind barriers, because pickleball, wind is a big issue. And it's definitely a need that we need some wind barriers, but that's all in the pricing. So I see, so putting in place so the fences is there. We have our permanent posts, which are very affordable. It's up to $2,000. The next slide. Installation of post, again, could be done by the city or could be contracted out. So the nets, the windscreen, there might be a little bit more windscreen than 240 feet. So that might be more like $4,500. These prices were priced out approximately 8 months ago. So maybe with inflation might be slightly more, or with labor from the city might be slightly less. So these are very approximate price, but very, very close to what we need. So we're asking for a project worth about $45,000 for all these beautiful people to play pickleball. So I think it's very cheap, and I think it's a no-brainer for at our perspective, but hopefully you guys can see it the same way. So that's the pricing. What else we got here? That's about it for me, I think.
Well, there's an example of the court, what it would look
So
like.
I took the privilege of measuring everything. This is exactly how it would fit. The red line is actually the tennis nets now, so we would be asking for a 4-foot fence there so that the ball could stop. And this is plenty of room, almost like a professional size. It would be so nice, and we'd be using one tennis court instead of using the 3. So next year, when these are full, we'll be coming to us to do the other 2. But let's start with this one. Other than that, we had one more request. We have a member, one of our senior members, she wanted a wine bar, but I said that I would ask, but I didn't. Right, Marie? So, but I didn't put that into proposal because I didn't think it would work. I think that's about all for me, or do I have to talk
For
again?
you, I have a couple more
Oh.
sentences here, but thank you. And
No problem. And I do have all the warranties and all the pricing that I can leave with somebody.
Yeah.
Thank you.
so then again, the next slide is just, all we want to convey here is that our vision does reflect the role of West Nipissing Council in that we are considering the well-being and interest of the municipality, whether it be economically, to keep people in the community, health-wise, or social. The next slide, please.
If I could just add, I know of about 12 people that live in Verner or Sturgeon that do not play here because of our courts. They go to Sudbury every day. Does not make sense. And I'm one of them. I do play here, but if you ask me right now, I will drive to Sudbury before I play on the disaster that we have to play all the time.
This is just an example, a photograph that I took on, I think it was September on October in Sudbury. So the greater Sudbury area, the greater North Bay area, New Liskeard, many other municipalities all around us are catching on to the importance and grandeur of pickleball. So we hope that West Nipissing understands our vision also, and that we could have something that looks like this. We have people, tourists coming in the summer, and we had players coming in from Timmins or Embrun or Ottawa, and to play with us this summer at the courts or at the arena. And they were kind of telling us, what they had in their area. And we were kind of jealous, because they had facilities similar to this. It's just a big sport. So even if somebody comes into town to go fishing or camping or something, they know about the pickleball and they do come and play also. We can't finish the presentation, and you can go to the next slide, please, without addressing funding. We have approached the provincial and federal offices for possible funding for this project. We just missed out on a grant at the end of September. But I am on a list, send grant info folder from Marc-Seri's office. So as soon as something does come up, any grant at all, I will get that information and I'll see if it's appropriate for us or not. We are working with the Trillium Foundation also. So any grant, I will let you know, because as you're aware, it's the municipality that has to apply for this funding and not ourselves. We thank you very much for allowing us to present our proposal to you and for your consideration in this regard. We hope to see you on the court sometime. Thank you. The next slide is if you have any questions, I think we may have a couple of minutes to answer questions.
Excellent. Thank you for the very thorough presentation, the overview. It's great. I will open the floor if there's any questions from any council members here or any online. Councilor Tessier?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. So it looks very, very less than tennis. I played tennis, but the court seems smaller, so the steps are probably shorter to take. My question is other organization do fundraising? Is that something that you're also looking at apart from the funding? Is fundraising activities?
At our AGM, a couple of weeks ago, we talked about that, and we are and it's something that Mayor Rochon recommended, is kind of take part of our membership fee and put it aside for such expenses as this project or the future building project and stuff like that. So we are taking that into account, and we are proceeding with that, yes.
But it is public property, so we can't start painting courts on our own. So we do need council or city to approve. So we do have fundraising and we do promote the sport. We could have rackets for beginners. We have our own nets. We have a lot of stuff, but we definitely need the city to build the facility because it's a public space.
Thank you.
And if I may, what's the membership fee?
I believe we charge $40,
No.
$80.
$80.
$80.
So a little part of that goes to Pickleball Ontario and to Pickleball Canada. We do,
For insurance
For
purposes also.
insurance
So we're all
purposes.
insured. So we'll be under for our group, we're all insured on our own.
Thank you.
Any other questions from members of council? Not seeing any. Again, I appreciate the presentation today and the information that's shared. Our next step is to take this to a future meeting for discussion. And obviously, with the financial impact, it's something we'll be discussing during our budget deliberations as well. So I'd like to thank you again for your presentation, and we look forward to speaking with you in the future.
thank
Thank
you.
you.
We appreciate it.
Moving on with our next agenda item, we have in the committee of the whole, we have our general government committee. Give just a moment for some of our participants to head out. Okay, as I mentioned, next item on the agenda is our committee of the whole meeting. The first committee that we have is General Government Committee, and I know the mayor usually chairs that, but given her being online, it's probably easier to do it here in the room. So I'll chair this part of the agenda. The first item that we have, 511, is the Cache Bay Trailer Park sale update, and I'll turn it over to the CEO.
Through you, Mr. Chair, thank you. This one's really by way of information only. As council is aware, we have declared the Cache Bay Trailer Park as surplus to our needs and put it for sale. We had a reserve bid, I believe, of about 600,000, if I'm not mistaken. And the winning bid came in at 761,000, which was very positive news for us. Ms. Ducharme, who's our lands and legal person has been working with the successful bidder. And just informing you that the sale and the transfer will take place December 15th.
Some good news for sure, being over what the reserve was. There any questions or comments from any members of council? Not seeing any. We will move on to our next agenda item. We have a update or a request that was put forward by Councillor Tessier regarding bylaws and policies available on the municipality of West Nipissing website. And within our package, we had the request form that had come forward. So maybe at this time, I'll turn it over to Councillor Tessier to provide some background.
Basically, like I've indicated on the agenda, that making these bylaws and policy available online on the municipal website would help our stakeholders and members of council to be able to access that information right away. And also it's provide accountability and transparency as well, and openness of information. Because as council, we prepare those policies and bylaws for our stakeholders as well as the administration. So it would show transparency.
Thank you for that background, Councillor Tessier. I'll turn it over to our CEO.
Through you, Mr. Chair, it's an excellent idea. Certainly something that we will strive to get towards. Some of our bylaws really are not public bylaws. You have confirmatory bylaws and a variety of different procedural bylaws. But what I infer is the bylaws that are affecting the public. We do have our most frequently utilized bylaws or viewed bylaws now, but certainly we can expand that. With respect to our policy manual, we certainly can do that too. Now, if council wishes, and I don't see a reason why not, I would just indicate to you that there are a few little glitches prior to doing that. One is a technology glitch. The other one has to do with how we have to display bylaws with our requirements of AODA and with obviously our bilingual requirement. We are striving now and we are working at translating sections of bylaws. So those things before making them public, end up, take some time. But certainly if it's council's wish to proceed that way, certainly we would be looking at overcoming those obstacles and putting them in. It's just indicating that it's not as easy as just putting them out there. There's some technical, legal, and logistical issues as well.
Thank you for that background, Mr. Barbeau. Is there any questions from members of council on that issue? Mayor Rochelle?
Hi, I just wanted to, through you, Mr. Chair, if I could direct a question to Mr. Barbeau. When you talk about the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act, you're talking about online document accessibility. Is that a function that is performed in-house, or is that a service that we have to go to an outside contractor to have done on these documents?
I'm going to guess through you, Mr. Chair, to your worship, I believe that we are doing most of that in-house right now. Our communications team is ensuring that we're compliant when they're posting. We do have a contractor that assists us with our website, but unless Ms. Craddock has any news to the contrary, I don't know that we're contracting any of that out.
No, my understanding is that with the older documents, the difficulty might be in how they're scanned in or whatever. When we PDF our current stuff, it PDFs in a format that is readable and therefore accessible, and that we may have some difficulty with our old documents.
That's right.
Okay, I just wanted to understand that, especially with the older documents, that there could be costs associated with the preparation of those to be put online, because now it's all OCR and it's a little easier, but older documents may require to be re-input, or like there could be both a outside contractor cost and also additional considerable staff time in preparation of those. Thank you.
Any other questions, Councillor Tessier?
So if it takes time, is there another way that council, if not the stakeholders, can have access to those documents? Either paper form, or if it's on a drive, or a,
Through you, Mr. Chair, of course, all of our documentation, unless otherwise stated, is public. People can request them. If they're requesting documents in volume where it becomes costly to the municipality, then at that point, we might request that they do a freedom of information request, which covers us in terms of cost recovery. But that's certainly something we can look at. Certainly, we have our policies, I believe, electronically, if I'm not mistaken. And I don't have the exact data on all of our bylaws. I mean, the municipalities existed for 24 years, so not all of them obviously would be electronic. So it would be paper copies, and they would request. If they're requesting one bylaw that is of interest to them, I have a problem with my neighbor and I want to check the fencing bylaw out. We usually just photocopy that and give them that at the front desk. So,
Through you, Mr. Chair, we on our bylaw page, on our frequently requested, there is a button that you can request a
Request
specific
online,
bylaw, and that comes directly to myself and the deputy clerk, so we can reach out to the requester right away.
now for councilors. Can we have access without like
absolutely.
if I want
Yes.
the whole package all at once? That's what I'm asking.
Well, the bylaws it depends a little bit more, but certainly a policy manual, I believe you probably should have it already, if I'm not mistaken. So you were probably given our policy manual in the starting up package, if I'm not mistaken, or I thought so. Anyway,
And how many?
if not, you certainly
Well, there was a
make
few
request, we can get it to
policies,
you.
yeah, is that all the policies, like there was like 5 or 6?
Sorry, I'm a little hard of hearing.
There was about like 5 or 6 policies at
That
the beginning in our
Oh,
binders.
that were related to council's performance, staff relations, and that kind of thing. I assume that in our manual that we provided the policy manuals. If not, then we can provide you that. Sure.
Thank you.
Let's call for questions. Not seeing any. So I think with some of the discussion here, we do have frequently asked about policies readily available. We do have a button on our website to request policies if there are specific ones, and we do have access to the policies, bylaws as counselors as well. So hoping that satisfies the request on the agenda.
Yeah, the policy manual, if there's a manual, I can maybe verify to see if I received it or not.
Okay, if we're good with that, then we can close that item and move on to the next item on our agenda, which is the process for evaluation of the Chief Administrative Officer. And within our packages for tonight's meeting, we had a memorandum that was prepared by Madame Rada for all of us. So maybe I'll turn it over to her for some comments.
Thank you. Just a quick kind of look through so that, there is a policy already on how evaluations are done on our CAO and on non-union staff. We just recently updated our internal procedure on how evaluations are handled and how performance evaluation are handled. I think it would be a good idea to take a look at how, council and the CAO both work together and do the evaluations. It's really kind of a brief policy, so it doesn't talk about, how expectations are established and communicated, and particularly when we're looking at council as an entire body managing a staff as opposed to, I just manage an employee. It's a little bit different structure, so that I think that's a sort of a time to take a look at our process and our policy. I had spoken with the mayor previously, and her suggestion had been that perhaps we tackle it a little bit like council had initially tackled the procedural bylaw, that there's actually a sort of a small committee that does some of the original hard work and then brings it back to council for approval. Mayor Rochelle, I don't know whether you wanted to have a comment on that?
Go ahead.
For you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I had spoken with Elisa on this topic over the last couple of weeks. I think that there's a couple of things here. The policy that Ms. Craddock has shared with us dates back to amalgamation, 1999. We're now looking at a policy that's over 20 years old. But even more so, the organization has changed significantly in that time. And also, I know Mr. Barbeau is not shy of telling people that he is also approaching retirement. So in the very near future, well, not very near, but in the near enough future, we will have a new CAO. And I think it's important for human resources, from a human resources perspective, as well as just good governance, to kind of have something set up that we can have a more formalized a performance evaluation process in place for the position of CAO. And also maybe go back and look at what the job description is for CAO, and make sure that we're identifying, not only, like kind of what's in the policy here, but also maybe have some help identifying some of the performance indicators and things that we would use to be able to adequately manage a senior executive position. I think it's very important for the relationship between council and the CAO. And I think we all know how important that good relationship is to the functioning of the municipality overall. So I just think from a management perspective, it's something that should be done. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments, Mayor Rochelle. Any other questions from council? I think I don't see any questions from council. I think it's a good idea suggested by Braddock to have a subcommittee, as we did with the procedural bylaw, to kind of dig down a little bit and then bring it back to council for review. I thought the process went well for the other procedural bylaw that we worked on. I'm going to maybe ask the mayor if you have any thoughts on who might be recommended for this subcommittee. And I think we had 3 or 4 for the procedural bylaw.
Yeah, I would like to participate. I would like you to participate as our deputy mayor. And I'd like to see interest from other members, but I know that I think Councillor Gagné would be appropriate because he has experience in a management position where he manages staff, as do you. But I'd like to leave it open to see if there are other members of council interested.
I'll pose that question. Are there any other members of council who would be interested in sitting on the review? Councillor Tessier. And I know we're missing a couple of folks tonight, and we don't have to put this in stone today, but if we do have those recommended members of council with the mayor, myself, Councillor Gagné, Councillor Tessier, I think that's a good group to at least get started with this. So I guess over the next little while, we'll be working with staff to review this particular item, and we'll bring it back to council for their input and discussion before things are finalized in the future. But I definitely agree with the mayor's comment. A policy that's over 20 years old definitely should be reviewed and revised based on evolution of the organization. So that's great. Okay. Next item that we have on the agenda is the Cano request for financial assistance. And again, within our package, we had some historical information on the relationship between Cano and the municipal council. I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Craddock to provide some of that verbally for us.
Thank you. So, Yeah, we received a recent request for Cano, I believe for 25,000, and in their request, they sort of frame it as it was the last payment that didn't get made in our prior agreement. And so since this is an entirely new council, I just wanted to make sure that council sort of was aware of what happened last go around. So that as if council sort of considering whether they're going to, partner with Cano again, that we have sort of sufficient, and not just with Cano, but it's because Cano has come with us with this kind of proposal. But when we are partnering with groups, that we've got sort of sufficient oversight and sufficient control, depending on our level of investment in an organization that we're working with, kind of on a partner or even as a funding agency. Obviously, when we're in receipt of funding from various levels of municipal government or various levels of government higher than us, there's a lot of documentation and a lot of financial reporting and a lot of, check the boxes that we need to provide to our funders because they're accountable to their set of taxpayers. And it's the same here, so that if council is going to look at the sponsorship or the funding of Cano, just to ensure that we don't end up in quite the same situation that we had last time. Obviously, COVID happened, but even before COVID sort of completely shut them down, there were some significant issues in how our investment was protected with Cano. I'll give it back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for that overview of past information regarding the previous agreement that we had with the organization. Open the floor for questions from any members of council. So before us is a formal request of 25,000. I'll go to Councillor Tessie.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. So if I'm reading this right, their financial statements and information was not like up to date, or like there was, because the auditors seem to have missing information to be able to produce a financial statement or something like that. Is that correct?
If I may, Mr. Chair, there were two issues on the last set of financial statements. One is what they labeled as the auditors produce a qualified statement. And when auditors produce a qualified statement, it can be for a variety of reasons, but it does mean that the auditors can't say with certainty that the statements are correct. And so they provided the statement that, they're materially correct, except for the fact that they can't actually confirm that the revenue reported was correct. In that it's an organization that handles a lot of cash. There's a lot of cash that runs through. A lot of the sales are cash, and it sort of suggests that, and so obviously cash is always a more riskier thing. It's obviously always harder to audit. So that by itself isn't necessarily a damning statement. It does suggest that perhaps there aren't sufficient controls or cash handling controls with the organization. The bigger problem was in the notes when they talked about whether the organization was actually still solvent or not. And so when they talk about going concern, talk about solvent, what they're saying is that based on the financial statements, they thought that the organization was bankrupt and was not a going concern at that time. They were relying solely on the manager saying, yeah, we've got a plan to get out of this. And that's the only thing that they based it on. And so that if in fact, yeah, we've got a plan to get out of this wasn't true, or the manager, then the entire financial statements were no longer kind of supportable or valid. That everything is based on the fact that a manager said, yeah, we've got a plan to get out of this. And then as we saw, COVID happened and everything else, but they were insolvent at year end of March 2020.
So just to clarify with the plan, we did not provide the plan, they just went to that, okay.
Any other questions from any other members of council? Mr. Gagne, Councillor Gagne, you see your hands raised?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Resto, Mr. Chair. I would like to see a forecast budgeted report from Cano so that we can actually see what's their projection in regards to their expenses for the upcoming year. I'm not comfortable just hashing out $25,000 without actually knowing what we're getting into financially. It'd be nice to know what we're investing in. I went through the reports. I know there was a COVID period, but I did see some shows weren't sold out. So I'd like to at least know from them forecasted budgeted report. So we actually know that our 25,000 will be well invested in them. And I also would like to see a member of council sitting at the table of Cano, so that we have a stake and we're more aware of what's going on with the Cano. And if I'm not mistaken, I think there was a councilor in the past that was sitting at that table, but I haven't seen an invitation to join back since they've restarted Cano since COVID. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Gagne. Are those doable requests, the Cano?
So last time we did have a member sitting there, so I don't think that should be a surprise if that kind of request comes back. And as far as the budget and the forecast, I mean, we'll certainly can ask, then it's up to them, yeah.
Okay, and again, this goes back to the earlier delegation that we had as well. Being a financial issue, it's something that we'll bring back during our budget deliberation. So maybe in between now and then, staff would be able to reach out to Cano and to the group there, maybe get this information to our table, and it would help in our discussions and our deliberations and how we want to move forward with this. Everybody's okay with that approach? Okay. So we'll do that. The next item that we have on the agenda is the delegations to the Roma conference. We have a deadline of November 20th. Again, we had information within our packages outlining this. I would maybe turn it over to Mel for a quick.
Chair, as you're aware, the upcoming Roma conference is in January. However, they have indicated that the cutoff for the delegation request is the 20th of November. So I am seeking input from council as to what initiatives council might like to bring before the ministers at the upcoming conference.
So we'll open the floor. If there's any opening thoughts or comments from any council members in terms of issues that we could bring or request delegations for. Councilor Shane.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I had noted a couple topics, again, based on our term plan, just because that's our guiding document for the next couple of years. I'm also open to any recommendations from staff, because I mean, you guys are in the day-to-day. So if you do have any recommendations, I personally would be open for that. But a few ideas, so advocating for better internet service. I know it's the Roma conference, so we may have a better chance at advocating on that. But again, those are just things I got out of our term plan. Explore the expansion of access to natural gas in the area. I know those are all kind of like, pie in the sky type of thing. Maybe if, again, we have a recommendation from staff, we can, narrow that a little bit more. Housing, I know it's a hot topic, and we've already had delegation this past summer, so maybe we'll want to try with the new minister. I'm not sure. Water supply from Sturgeon to Verner. I know there's been some work on that. Again, just throwing things out. And the Eugene Road Bridge. I know it's when it was with the Champlain Bridge. It's going to be. We've seen the preliminary price tags, and unfortunately, we can't do it because we don't have the money. So. Maybe we'd like to knock at a few doors, at Roma and see what we can do. But again, I'm open to staff's recommendation.
I'm going to ask Theo to provide some comments on that.
Through you, Mr. Chair, they're all good suggestions. Prior to making a request, we probably want to look at what exists already with respect to policy of the four. Certainly, with respect, I don't know that we would be advocating for the Eugene Bridge. I think the issue there is more one of supply here locally, and if we were going to put our eggs in basket, our big problem is the Champlain Bridge. In an order of magnitude, it's about 10 times the problem with respect to size. I met with the staff of MTO and was mildly disappointed because they didn't seem to be echoing what the minister was saying. So perhaps we can go revisit that one. Certainly, if people are, reading the news today with they call it the Large Mayors Caucus in Northern Ontario, there are joint submissions from all of them to talk about the fact that we have a homelessness crisis and a housing crisis. So certainly, whatever we can do there would be something that, to advocate and get a solution for West Nipissing. Would probably be something that we would look at. As for the other ones, I think there are programs in place that exist right now with respect to internet, and I think the Mayor Rasho and I spoke, and there are some plans that are in place. So the government does have programs in place that we're working with, and with respect to natural gas, I believe that there's a program with Enbridge as well that exists. So I don't know that they would change or that they would advocate for us more than that. I think it's just a matter of fitting a project into those parameters of those programs.
Thank you for those comments, Barbara. Mayor Rachon, I see your hand raised.
Hi, thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. I also had thoughts about the Champlain Bridge. We had such a great meeting with Minister Mulroney last year at OGRA conference, and it was really disappointing when Minister Mulroney was shuffled away from the transportation portfolio. So there's now a new minister there, that we haven't spoken to explain the vital importance of this link, not just to our community, but that it is the link across northeastern Ontario. It is such a huge project that will have such a huge financial burden on this municipality. It's going to be absolutely critical that we get the province to come on board. And the clock is ticking. The bridge isn't getting any younger. Unfortunately, we already have reports that it's time to do it. And I'm concerned that with a new minister, that without the proper advocacy, that this falls back to the bottom of the pile, bottom of the inbox for them. It really does need to be made a priority for our community because, quite frankly, our taxpayers cannot afford to foot the bill on the reconstruction of that bridge alone. It's last time we looked, 26 million, and we know that prices go up every day. The other idea I had was in regards to Ministry of Social Services delegation. I think I mentioned when DSAP came to see us early in our term that according to the math, we are underrepresented on their board, both in terms of our population and in terms of our contribution to the organization. And I don't know that if that is the makeup of the board is something that is determined at the ministry level. But I think it is worth making the argument that given our size and our contribution, that our representation on that board should be more in line with what we actually bring to the table. So those are my two. Thank you.
Revart.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. I like the ideas that were brought up. Definitely the Champlain Bridge seems like a priority, especially this is just another conference where we put it in someone else's ear. But also, as Mr. Barbeau mentioned, I enjoyed the idea that a bunch of mayors are getting together to speak about homelessness and just how interesting it is when you're dealing with rural Ontario municipalities, right? Because we can't deal with it the same way that those larger cities can deal with it. So it'd be nice to let them know that as well, that us smaller municipalities need help when it comes to this. And it kind of puts a strain on services that we don't even have already, a lot of the services. Or just on services in other cities as well. So I think that would be a good idea. But I also really like the Councillor Cruikshane's idea about the water to Verner, or just to see where that stands, because last time I heard too, that one was a very expensive project. So it sounds like we got lots of expensive projects, but it seems as of right now, I'd be leaning more towards the Champlain Bridge and perhaps that one about housing and homelessness in Northern Ontario rural municipalities in specific as well. Thanks.
Any other comments? No. So we have a couple, and I think my comments. Oh, Councillor Gagné.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. The other question I had was, I'm not sure if we've heard anything from the old Minister Clark's office from Municipal Affairs in regards to the building of the 35 units for the Au Chateau. And if not, would it be worth to ask a delegation with that new minister also to kind of get them engaged to make sure that they know that it's a need, and maybe ask if any progress has it done, or is it maybe directed to you, Monsieur Barbeau? Is it too quick to start questioning already since our meeting in August? Thank you.
Sure, thank you, Councillor Gagné. This is just my own personal opinion and perspective. I share the mayor's perspective, where we've made really inroads with certain ministers on some files. Some of them, as I indicated with MTO, I didn't get the same sense when we met with our staff here at Public Works and our engineers and theirs, that they got the same vibe from their minister as we did. So I think along that same line, I don't see it. I think it's to cut this short, I think it's actually Councillor Gagné to reintroduce the subject to the new minister. So yes, we will be making that request with in addition to the others.
Okay, thank you.
That actually took my comments out, because I was thinking the same thing in terms of timing and, you know, being a squeaky wheel on some of these issues, especially when there's change within the ministry. I know the files stay with the workers themselves, or the technicians, but speaking from a political level with new leadership, it's always good to reintroduce, if we can, with new ears at the table. So are we okay with what's been put forward? We have staff know the direction.
We're on it.
It's excellent. Okay, so we'll look for responses between now and January from our provincial partners, and hopefully we're successful at getting some delegations. And I know, going back to August, I'm not going to drag this out too long, but I think we did have some very good delegations that happened, and prep from staff, and the delivery from us as political leadership. I think it went excellent. So we're looking forward to hopefully getting some positive responses to our requests, and equally positive presentations in the delegations in January. Okay, so we'll finish that item. Our next item that we have, 5.1.6, is the proposed annual budget meeting dates. I'll turn it over to Mr. Barbeau.
Through you, Mr. Chair, just to let you know that we will be circulating some dates, but we have started through our worship. We would like, and I think council would like as well, for a variety of different reasons, to get a 2024 budget approved as soon as possible. There are a lot of reasons, a lot of changes in the supplier or vendor purchaser relationships, that if we don't get out early, we start losing the preferential pricing to going early. And so we're trying to get that done early. Long and short of it, I know that last year there wasn't a preference for a Saturday, but I think it would be it would be in council's best interest to consider November 18th, as the mayor offered. We're ready to go for November 18th. The first part of it, we would be combining a little bit of an update and how we're aligning with the term plan of council, and a bit of a dialogue on council's position on that, and then moving into an overview. And I think that when we used to do Saturday meetings, they used to be able to really get into detail as opposed to these choppy sessions and trying to find time between councillors' busy schedules during the week. So obviously we'll need that as well. We wouldn't be able to finish it on a Saturday, but certainly that would be ours. My understanding, and I haven't paid attention to this, is that we probably, and the mayor has paid attention, or I don't, she does. And I think that we have pretty much a majority of people who've answered in the affirmative, if I'm not mistaken. Worship.
Yes, we have, I did reach out to council last week. I did get replies from everybody. There is one member who's trying to make some shifts in some previous engagements. But besides that, everybody has confirmed their availability for the November 18th kickoff.
There you go. So we will endeavor to try and have a pre-budget document to you a few days in advance. We're working hard, a lot. Actually, I'm not at all. Ms. Craddock is, and our communication team is. But yes, I do see it. And so we're hoping to get you a document by Wednesday, so that you can, Wednesday or Thursday, so that you can at least have a few days to digest it. And then we can delve into it on Saturday. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for that. Oh, Madam Mayor.
Just as per the memorandum from, sorry, through you, Mr. Chair. As through the memorandum from Mr. Barbeau, if council could send me an email sometime in the next week, let's say by next Monday, the 13th, indicating your availability for evening meetings the week of the 20th to 24th and the week of November 27th to December 1st. That would be helpful. And then we can try to schedule in a few more evening sessions as needed. Thank you.
All right, that's great. So we can follow up on that for sure. And for those members who aren't here, we'll reach out by email. I'm sure staff will, to relay that request for available evenings for those 2 weeks. That was included. I don't want to get too much in. I don't want to get into the conversation too much, but I'll be curious to see how we do some of the projections for some of the payments that we make to, like the SAB and like the Au Chateau, and how those projections. I know theirs doesn't work right with ours, but we're not paying them. So that's great. That's great news for our tax fees. But that's great. We'll have some discussions on Saturday the 18th, and we'll start moving that forward. I don't know if there's any other questions or comments on that issue from any members of council.
Through you, Mr. Chair, can an email sent to all councillors about the dates? So then we can reply to those dates for the evenings. Just it's easier to keep track. Thank you.
Perfect. That's great. Okay, so that wraps up. I know it wraps up the General Government Committee. Now we're going to move to 5.2, which is the Social Services and Health Committee. And unfortunately for all of you, that's my committee. So you got to keep listening to me talk here again. First item that we have is the update on the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan. And I'm going to turn it over to our CEO for a brief update on that plan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, that was kind of a title to lead in and to segue into the two other issues. Having said that, the municipalities were required to provide a community safety and well-being plan. And there was a deadline to provide that, I'm going to say by, let's say, last year. And so we had some staff that were assigned to that and did a lot of excellent work providing this plan, working with our partners in our agency or in our fellow social service and the policing agencies and educational institutions and what have you. And so that plan was finished last year. There has been a lot of work that was done and continues to be done by agencies that deal with aspects of the plan. I don't have all of the details. I know that Her Worship can speak to that in a minute. But I think I'll segue into the first one, the homelessness in West Nipissing issue. You know, it's funny that you're talking about job descriptions for the CAO, and I've been here 23 years. And this is the first time I've ever had to delve into this subject matter at my level. I'm a general manager responsible for all services through reporting to council. But certainly we live in a time that, in my opinion, is unfortunate, where we have a segment of our population that are in need and on the street. West Nipissing has, other than in the last few years, has not seen visible homelessness as we have witnessed in maybe neighboring municipalities and other larger centers in North America. And we have, now we are dealing with it. My view, so my involvement in it in the last few weeks, so I'll just give you a little historical context. My involvement transpired from our bylaw enforcement people who have been working, responding to complaints of trespassing, of homelessness people, people in tents and so on in different areas, and getting complaints from residents and trying to move them along to other areas and trying to satisfy this issue. And it got to a point where the bylaw enforcement officer did not feel really good about that either, and really is just kind of moving pieces on a chessboard or whatever game board and not really satisfying anything. So he approached his supervisor, the chair, the director of emergency management and chief, and we met, and we decided that this can't kind of continue this way. We need to have a solution. And so with that in mind, going back to the community safety and well-being plan, I instigated and took a lead on having a multidisciplinary group of people meet, and that happened a couple weeks ago. And just to have a discussion about the situation. And so what we had were the DSAT, social services, who attended remotely, virtually. We had individuals from the health unit. We had individuals from mental health with the Alliance Center and the hospital. We had individuals from the community health center, from our housing agency here locally, West Nipissing Housing, with and with our police, and of course with our bylaw enforcement people. What struck me was the fact that there are things that are happening, but in my opinion, there isn't a coordinated, systemic approach to how we're dealing with the issue. And so there's certain agencies that may be dealing with a small part of it, and nobody knows that info. There's other agencies dealing with other parts of it, and nobody's dealing with that info. I was surprised that the agency dealing with social services were not overly aware of the actual numbers that we knew with respect to our bylaw enforcement officer and his knowledge. I was also surprised. We did have information from one person who is an outreach worker who attends on Wednesdays, and that was known by a few, but not by all. So what struck me was a lack of coordination and real systematic attention to the problem. So that was the one thing. Then I think I stirred it up a little bit, because I wasn't really impressed with the responses that I was receiving from agencies with respect to them just kind of sweeping West Nipissing as an aside. Now, it may not have been intended that way, but I certainly received it that way. And so I responded a little bit more intensely, as you know. And it seemed to shake some people up here, which I don't apologize for. I'm happy it did, because there was a few other meetings. There was some misconception as to what our approaches would be with respect to having people forcibly removed just on the spot like that without following process and procedure. But nevertheless, it did light a fire under some folks, and to me, that's a good thing. There was this email that I sent that it would be my preference, speaking for council, to have a certain encampment where we're receiving a lot of complaints removed. And so, because it's a problem for us, it's also a problem where that location is potentially utilized for other issues coming down in the wintertime. So, so that's a problem. And so spoke to the police, talked to how we manage the situation, and certainly there's case law and studies as to how things should happen. So the intent was to have all of the parties in the social service agencies reach out and go and attend and offer alternatives to these, I think they're 5 tents. That got kind of jumped ahead, where it was assumed that our fire chief and one of the outreach workers attended. So I attended as well, and I had a very informative meeting with the individuals that are in the audience here. Learned a little bit more about what their intentions are and what they do, and I obviously respect their intentions. What I still don't see, though, is that coordination. And I'll say this as a CAO, speaking for council, that what I indicated to them is one person living on the street is not acceptable to me. I don't think anybody signed their yearbook saying I wish to be living in a tent on off of Crosseau Street. So I don't think it's something that is their fault. By no means. Obviously, there's a bunch of issues with respect to that, that target group that are way more complex than I've been trained to do. But I believe it's incumbent on all of us to work together and to basically provide the individuals the assistance that they need. And though I respect the fact that they're providing comfort here locally, I don't think that that in and of itself is sufficient. I believe that just basically provides some comfort, but it isn't sustainable. What's sustainable is to have them get into whatever system is offered to them, and to get them the help and the care that they need and deserve as humans. So that's basically the update. Now, the issues, as I understand also, is that there are services that are offered by DSAP, and those services, I'm going to generalize, exist in North Bay, and those services are offered centrally by DSAP, and they have an economy of scale, so to speak. I think, Mr. Chair, you had just visited a facility today at noon, and they have a capacity over there. The problem that exists here locally is that the individuals don't want to go to North Bay. And so then the dilemma is, well, if they don't go to North Bay, and that's what's being offered, what is our role then? If we've offered them a solution and they don't take it, what do we do then? And then secondly, what does DSAP do about that as well, with respect to considering different services here in West Nipissing? So not a simple thing. It's been heart-wrenching and very frustrating for me, but I stand by the fact that I don't want anybody on the streets of West Nipissing living that way. If that's Pollyannic, You know, if I'm accused on behalf of council of being hard on that, I think it's the reverse. I think people need to come together, find a solution, coordinate these agencies' efforts, and get them off the street, not staying where they are. That's not tenable. And so that's, I guess, the update on that. There'd be some discussions as to what, you know, whether shelter should be offered here, or, you know, whether we'd be willing to entertain that, or is council's position to reinforce what social services are offering, and ensuring that social services are providing the options for our homeless, our visible homeless to get on a bus, get on, in a cab, get whatever way, and get to those facilities in North Bay. I still don't have an opinion on that. I leave that to council to provide a policy kind of, or general policy statement.
Thank you for all of that information and background sharing in terms of what's been done in the last short while. And I'm going to open the floor to our council members to share any thoughts or comments they may have. Councilor Tessier?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. When you met with DSAB, the health unit, mental health, did you also, there's the housing, that I'm assuming that's the West Nipissing Nonprofit Housing Corporation. Was there any, I think we have a homeless shelter here, the Horizon for Women's Shelter. Were they included in that conversation?
We didn't have them at the table.
Okay. Because they deal with homelessness and the situation of our individuals on the street. So that
Right.
could be a great partner to have in the conversation.
Right. You know, and I appreciate the fact that I may not, again, for two reasons. I was trying to put some people together, given the time of year it is, in a hasty manner. And secondly, I'm not actually trained in that. I never really had, you know, at my level, any real contact. I will say this too, to respond as to the why. Just a bit of a governance thing. I think the mayor has tried to respond to certain people to understand. Municipalities offer services under the Municipal Act, and there's a variety of services that you see, and some of them that you don't see. And some of them that you don't see are social services. So if you look at Sudbury as an example, Sudbury has an umbrella that is all under the city of Greater Sudbury. So their social services director or general manager has a variety of services under their portfolio, and then that person then would respond to my position. In this case, because we're a smaller municipality, we don't have that luxury. We contract out services, some if it's feasible to do so and it's financially beneficial, such as our police, and others by law. And so DSAD is the agency that, in my opinion and knowledge of municipal government, is the lead agency. And so I really don't have a lot of knowledge or time for that kind of knowledge to learn somebody else's expertise. I rely on DSAB for that expertise. What I tried to do is pull a local group here in the same manner that we did during COVID, where we had a team of individuals that were related, and my role was as a catalyst to try and get people at the table to talk together for a West Nipissing solution. So if I missed a few, they certainly can be included in future, but certainly the people at that table were extremely knowledgeable of everything else. So I had the Alliance Center, I had the hospital, I had the social of those services. So it isn't like they were forgotten, they were mentioned.
And just before, I'd like to introduce a notice of motion to the clerk to add to the minutes, and also to bring to the agenda for next meeting.
I'll read it in.
Sure, if you'll read it in, I'm not sure. At the end?
No.
Okay. Looking online, are there any comments? Not to put you on the spot, you can say no. Just don't want to leave you out of the conversation if there's any comments. Madam Mayor?
Yeah, you know, it becomes interesting because, you know, as a municipality, we're extremely limited. We don't operate under the same rules as federal or provincial government. We're not allowed to run deficits. And therefore, any money that we spend as a municipality must be collected directly from our ratepayers. And we can spend what we've budgeted, no more, no less. And you know, we do pay $3.4 million. People want to compare what municipalities in Southern Ontario are doing and as far as the programs that they're offering. But the governance is extremely different in Southern Ontario. In Southern Ontario, you have two-tier governments where you have a regional government that is specifically responsible for providing the social services that we see provided through DSAP here in the north. In Northern Ontario, as member municipalities, we pay into a service board that is responsible for providing those services on our behalf. So when you get into services anywhere along the social services spectrum, so whether that's child protective services, housing and homelessness services, I'm trying to think of the other, Ontario Works, those are all provided by DSAB. And when groups come to the municipality and say, well, you should make a shelter, you need to do this, you need to do that, you know, I understand the urgency, and we've been working very hard to advocate with DSAB for how to serve the people who are in need in this community. But, you know, in order to offer services directly as a municipality will come at a cost, and a significant cost. And that is a cost that will be borne if that decision is made by our taxpayers. And there's no other way around it. The provincial government will not fund the municipality directly for the services that they legislate us to be served by the DSAB. The provincial government funds the DSAB, and the DSAB determines the programs and services that best serve the municipalities that are members of that particular board. So it becomes very difficult, and when we add services and we say, okay, well, that means your taxes are going to go up, people go, well, no, don't raise my taxes. If you raise our taxes, then less people will be able to afford to stay in their houses. Okay, well, if you want more services and you don't want us to raise our taxes, then we need to remove other services. So, you know, our budget is a 100% pie. And if you want to add something, then we either need to collect more money from our ratepayers in order to pay for services, I will add, we are already paying for. Or we need to take away services in order to make up that shortfall. So, you know, we're really stuck. We're not the provincial or federal government where we can spend more than we make, or, you know, that we can pull money from somewhere. We have the money we have, and that's it. And unfortunately, the services that are provided to adequately treat the complex nature of homelessness is a symptom of much more complex issues. And they're not anything that we have the expertise internally to support. And it's also extraordinarily expensive to do it well, and to do it in a way that actually makes substantial change and doesn't just float the problem along. So, you know, it's complex. Again, Mr. Barbeau, Councillor Restuel, myself have been working very hard to advocate for an increase in programs, but it's not. There are no instant fixes here. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments, Madam Mayor. Councillor Rivard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd just like to say thanks for the update you provided. That was pretty good. And I'd also like to thank everyone who's involved working on this matter. I know it's very complex, and like Mr. Barbeau mentioned, I don't think any of you are necessarily pros in this situation, especially since it's a new problem to a community like ours. But I'd also like to point out that I know we were just speaking about those delegations, and this conversation right here is kind of showing that I believe it would be a great delegation for one of those conferences, so that we could kind of put a bit more pressure on the government to help us find ways, help us smaller communities and similar communities find ways to deal with these situations, or just provide some extra funding to smaller communities like ours who haven't had this problem in the past and it's just arising now. But one question I had was, I know the mention was brought up about potentially moving some people in North Bay if that's possible or if the will is there. But I've also heard, I don't know how true any of this is, but if there even is room in a city like North Bay or Sudbury, and then if there isn't, what would happen at in those situations, right? Which that's concerning as well, just something that it gives me a hard time thinking of how this problem could be solved.
My understanding is there may be room, but my frustration is that we don't know. And so just to build on what the mayor was indicating, after I provided a politically incorrect or assertive email indicating my frustration for services in West Nipissing, there has been a request sent out by the chair of their board, their vice chair, who's active in this file. She leads an organization in North Bay that has helped our residents as well when we had to evict at the Champlain Hotel or motel. So what we will be doing is continuing to meet as partners, trying to find a solution to some issues. I will be getting more information as well as our legal rights or barriers to whether services have to be offered in West Nipissing or if they have to be offered by us in the district at which services are offered. Because the bottom line is that, and I've been receiving a lot of emails of frustration from individuals, and I'm not going to pit two sides against each other, but what I would respond to those who are complaining about the encampments is and they're saying, well, we're not allowed to do that, whatever. The difference is that those who are in encampments, once they stay there for a period of time, it becomes their primary residence. And so the courts are a lot more careful with respect to enforcing trespass orders or the like. And so we have to deal with this in the appropriate manner. But again, the bottom line is we need to have them off the street. And definitely we can't have them in locations where we're planning on using land for the benefit of snow removal and other issues for winter maintenance. So that we do need to find a solution sooner than later. And so I need to work with those folks. So the next step for us is finding the mayor's availability and Mr. Councillor Restoul's availability to match up with the powers that be at DSAB and to make our point with respect to what our expectations are of DSAB for West Nipissing.
See if there's any other comments or questions on this issue. See the Mayor Rochelle.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Sorry, I'm getting a little feedback. Mr. Barbeau, when DSAB did come to visit at Coursol Road last week or whenever it was, there were offers of temporary accommodation made to the people who were staying there.
Through you, Mr. Chair, it didn't quite work that way. What we have is an advocate here who's here local who has been advocating and working, and that individual who I was fortunate enough to meet indicated. So it really was a single window with respect to one individual, and then the group of No More Tears had some individuals there as well at 10 a.m. on Friday. I guess they were expecting something. So I thought I'd show up, and I had a great chat with the executive of that group and indicated what, and listened to what they do and what they provided. but there was not a multi-jurisdictional group of individuals that attended that site.
Okay, and just so the public knows, DSAB has made efforts to reach out to accommodation partners in West Nipissing, and they have not been able to find any private sector accommodation partners that are willing to participate in an emergency shelter program here. Is that correct?
My understanding is that is correct.
Thank you.
So I'm not seeing any other hands up. I'd just like to share a couple of comments as well. And, there's a lot to this issue. There definitely is. And it's something that's growing across the province. This is no West Nipissing issue or North Bay issue. It's province-wide. We went to AMO this summer in London, and they talked about their numbers within their community there pre-pandemic and their current situation. And they had mentioned that they went from about 200 to about 2,000 over the couple of years in the pandemic. So there's huge challenges across the province with this. And if it is something that we bring in terms of a delegation, that's a bigger picture thing. As the CEO mentioned, I did have an opportunity today to tour the Low Barrier Shelter in North Bay and the Northern Pines transitional housing development that they have there. And that's not quite fully ready to open. They have some sections of it that are. They're finishing up some of the construction, but it's a challenge. And I hear, do they have enough room? Do they not? I don't know, because I'm not an expert in that area. But if I give a message to our local group, it would be as much as you can to try and encourage those individuals to seek out some of those services that are available for them. We're mid-November, the weather's not going to get any better, and it's not going to get any better for their situation. So if I could share a message from being there, I can't guarantee that there's adequate space, but I think there should be some effort there to encourage those individuals to take advantage of what services exist right now. And I applaud our staff, the mayor, for meeting with local groups here, where we have opportunity, as Mr. Barbaro mentioned, to meet with reps from DSAB to see what we can do, how we can shift services possibly, have some brainstorming sessions on what might work for our community and for the individuals that are currently in that homeless situation. So work's being done. Nothing happens as fast as we'd like it to, but there is great effort going into this important initiative. And, again, I appreciate the messages that our CEO has sent to the folks over at DSAB, because I know, speaking with them today during the tour, it certainly got their attention and they are aware of it, and they do want to meet as soon as we can to start talking about this. So, an important issue that maybe wasn't getting the attention that it needed a short while ago, but through efforts of a lot of people around the table and our CEO in particular, it is high on their radar, and they are wanting to meet with us. And I appreciate the work that the mayor's put into this file as well. So it is a challenge. I see that. I see that sitting there as a board member at DSAB. But what we have to do, I think, right now is use what's available to us in the really short term, and then collectively try to work to help in a different way, in different ideas and different approaches to this issue. So, if there's not any other comments, I'll leave it at that. We'll have other updates as we move forward on this, but there is considerable effort going into this issue from those around the table and our staff that we have and our partner organizations within the community. So I just wanted to share those comments. We're closed on that current issue. We should take a short break. We're at 8:03.
Need to move in a second. It is moved by Councillor Tessier and seconded by Councillor Rivard. At approximately 8:03 p.m., a motion was tabled for a 10-minute recess.
All those in favor? Carried. We're back in 10 minutes. We're back. Welcome back, everyone. Thank you for indulging us in a short break. We're going to continue on with our agenda. Last item under the Social Services and Health Committee portion is the participation in the Icelandic prevention model. And again, within our package, we have a draft MOU with the health unit. And we also have some information regarding the Icelandic prevention model. We've had some discussion on this in the past, and I know myself, the mayor, maybe our CEO, maybe not, but myself and the mayor definitely did participate in a session earlier this year, presentation. Mayor was in person, I was on Zoom for that session, and we've had some discussion at the health unit as well, being a board member there. So before us today is an MOU about engaging with the health unit and possibly other partners in the Icelandic prevention model. I might ask our CEO if he'd like to share a bit of background info around the MOU. And
I really don't have any more to share other than to indicate that after that same meeting that we had held with our partners, that our partner at the health unit met with myself and Mayor Rochelle to discuss the MOU and to discuss the program and whether we'd be interested. So that was my my foray into the Icelandic model, but from the general description and the commitment by the municipality on the front end, it just seemed like a very attractive thing to do. And it also, kind of piggybacks on some of the discussions we've been having about helping and trying to get preventing young adults from getting into the situations that we're unfortunately dealing with now. So any successful program, I think, would be well viewed from our perspective. And so I think I would prefer passing it on to Mayor Rochelle, who's got more knowledge on that than I do.
thank you for that. Mr. Rubble, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much through you, Mr. Chair. As Councillor Restuel indicated, both he and I were privileged to attend a session, I believe it was back in February, hosted by the health unit. And at this presentation, they actually had a gentleman who flew in from Iceland, who had been involved in this program from the very start. And it's a program that they've worked long and hard at. And in some of the background information, you'll see the interesting thing about Iceland is because it's so contained and so small, it's almost like rolling something out in a municipality. And the model really echoes a lot of the same kind of values and sentiments that are put out in our community safety and well-being plan about connectedness to community and how to engage with youth and how to foster really kind of a supportive community that makes the environment a better one for kids to grow and youth outcomes being related to the environments in which they live and grow. My feeling on it overall is I would have to applaud the health unit overall for seeing this program and recognizing the value it could have in our communities. And I think one of the really great things about it is that they're also getting buy-in from Health Canada. So there's multiple levels of funding partnerships there, but it's also the ability to measure outcomes within the community. So, often we can try to implement different programs and they're very hard to measure, especially long-term. And what happens a lot with government funding, it's a year program or a 2-year program, where when you're looking at community building and you're looking at strengthening the bonds of your community, it really is a long-term process. And funders want results now. And so the fact that the other levels of government are kind of coming on board saying, okay, this actually looks really promising. There's measurements involved. And the school boards are committed to the process as well. And I just think it's a great opportunity to kind of have additional support an additional direction as we try as a council and as a community to implement different programs that will help us become stronger. And I think the most important word in the whole program there is prevention. So I'm super excited, and I would like to thank Melanie Sims and Sandy Gaindon from the health unit for taking the time to speak with us and for being as excited as I am about it.
Thanks for those comments, Madam Mayor. I'll open the floor to any questions from council members, comments. Councilor Regar?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd just like to mention that I read up a bit on this Icelandic prevention model, and it seems like a great idea. And I know something that's always stuck with me when looking at substance use or prevention methods, especially in Northern Ontario, the amount of substance abuse or use happens is about 40% higher than the rest of the province. So a community like our own, I'm sure this would be a positive impact on our youth and our community. And from reading some comments, not so much reviews, but just some experiences from this model, I've seen that it's super positive, it's engaging, and it's been fairly successful in a lot of communities. Similar to our type of demographic, where we have far-reaching communities, it's difficult to obtain help if you need. And like Madam Mayor mentioned, the key word is preventative. And if we can prevent even just a handful of youth from these issues, then I think that's a win in my book. So I really like this idea, and I think it would be a great asset to have to work with the public health unit, who's going to be doing a lot of the work, and we just kind of tag along and reap the benefits from such a program. Thank you.
Through you, if this was approved, we would take it next week to a resolution. Or next meeting.
Yeah, appreciate those comments. Any others from council? Councilor Gagne?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I think it's a great idea. I like the project and the initiative. I guess my question would be, is there any way that we can apply or get funding to help us offset the $25,000 commitment? As we see more and more groups are coming to our table to see if we can help them out financially, but like, can we sustain this? And is there any funding that we can apply for grants or any kind of funding to help us out with this? Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I believe it's 5,000 our commitment for the next few years, right? I don't think it's 25.
Every year.
5 per year?
It's 5 every year. Oh.
Yeah, it's 5 every year for
I suppose we can apply to that. Certainly we can look into it. I'm sure there's a lot of community initiatives though, where if we do apply for a grant, we probably want to get more bang for our buck and you know, find larger projects, but certainly we can look at it, Councillor Gagne.
Madam Mayor?
Just through you, Mr. Chair, just in response to Councillor Gagne, you know, I see it more as the investment in the program itself is one thing, but then using the involvement in the program to help us when we're looking at funding for maybe some extra initiatives or facilities or programs that we want to push out may make us a better bet for funders down the road for initiatives that might relate back to the things that we're trying to do in the community. And I'm kind of with Mr. Barbeau on the $5,000 a year isn't a huge investment in that. But I think that our involvement with the health unit and the other partners that will be involved in the program, including the different school boards, may put us in good standing to look for funding for the actual initiatives or different things we might want to push out as part of this program. So, and just one other thing that's not related to Councillor Gagne's comments is the other thing that we talked about at the health unit is, you know, like the possibility of developing different intergenerational programs as well, and that's I think that's kind of exciting too. But like I see the involvement in the program as a way to maybe leverage funding for other kind of community development projects down the road. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Madam Mayor. Any other comments from councilors? No? See, when you chair these things, the downfall is all the good stuff gets said before it's your turn to talk. But I agree with the mayor. I think even going back to one of our previous agenda items, we're talking about community safety and well-being, and if we can be proactive within our community and reach out to our young people through this process, I think it's a great investment. We talked about the the homeless issue, that there's mental health issues within the communities, and this is, I think this is maybe getting us ahead of the curve a little bit in terms of supporting our youth and bringing in programming that could help them as they navigate the post-pandemic and all that mental health and social challenges that they're faced with. And I think, $5,000 a year for 5 years, it's an amount of money, but if I'm only looking at the first first item on the list of what the health unit's going to provide, is that they're providing a staff coordinator for the project for the duration. So a $5,000 investment to have, a full-time coordinator through the health unit it's probably pennies on what we're paying, what any organization is paying for staffing. So I think that's a great plus as well, because I know, going back to the conversation and the presentation that the mayor was with me at through the health unit in February, they talked about the cost and that we would have to bear that cost to implement this program. And I was a little bit surprised when I spoke with the CEO and had to see if it was a typo, that was such a really reasonable amount to implement this within our community to support our youth. So I'll stop my comments. I think Councilor Rivard had his hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just as you were speaking and as Madam Mayor was speaking, it brought me to another point where I'm a big fan of the word sustainability. I usually try and use it as much as I can, but I think this program is a very sustainable program with a light investment that could help us in future years, right? This could be a payoff. The $5,000 now is a fee that we see, but we're not going to be able to see the savings that this could help us with down the line when we prevent all of these potential issues, as you mentioned, mental health, or we were just speaking of homelessness earlier, or just family issues. There's all sorts of stuff that come into play here that'll put a strain on social services, and this could potentially be a very sustainable solution for quite a few people in the community. Just wanted to add that.
First comments. I don't see any other hands up, so I guess the next step with this, in our package, we have the draft MOU, so at our next meeting, it'll be brought back for resolution and for execution if it gets passed through. So appreciate the comments and discussion around this important issue here. So that being said, now we move on to the Environmental Services Committee. Councillor Nicol, take the mic.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have all seen the agenda item request from Madam Mayor about an accessibility issue for the residents of Wolseley Bay. But from here, I'm going to pass it to Mr. Barbo for some history on this area and how we got to this.
Well, Wolseley Bay has been, no, I'm just kidding. It's got to be a historic, but I fail miserably in that joke. Wolseley Bay is, I think, one of our furthest outposts in West Nipissing. Actually, you have to leave West Nipissing, go into French River, and then go back into West Nipissing to get to it. It's lovely over there. We built a really nice bridge out there. So the indication from Madam Mayor is that certain individuals are not receiving access to landfill or to solid waste services. What I would propose to do, because in fact we did look into it, and we are providing service to Wolseley Bay. They are being, obviously they don't have a landfill, but they do have access to collection from our contractor, Mr. Mercer. So what I would do on the short end, and then obviously all of that area, just as a point of history, 24 years ago now, the French River, not only this time, but in general, did not do what West Nipissing did. They decided to shut all of their, or a good part of their MNR, formerly managed MNR landfills, creating an urgent problem because these boundaries were kind of, unilaterally done during amalgamation and annexation. And so a lot of people that were our residents had a problem. So that's where we entered into an agreement with Mr. Mercer, and he's been servicing that area ever since. Our closest landfill is actually the Laving landfill. And so Mr. Mercer brings, collects all over there and then goes to either the Laving landfill or even, I think, Verner now. Because of the size of Verner, we don't want to overtax Laving. So there are services there. We all will look at where there are gaps in service, and we'll report back to council once we see what the actual gaps are. But I probably need a little bit more information from Madam Mayor as to who isn't getting service, and so we can address that in the most cost-effective manner.
Barco, does anyone have any questions or comments? Madam Mayor?
Okay, so Mr. Mercer, when he provides services, are those services that the municipality pays for, or is it each resident has the option of contracting the services from Mr. Mercer through us? Like, how does the financial arrangements for the contract with Mr. Mercer work?
For you, Madam Chair, the services are, we contract out to Mr. Mercer, and then we collect as we collect in all of our outlying areas. They pay a landfill only fee or a collection fee. But the relationship with the residents would be with the municipality, and then the service delivery would be a contractual relationship.
Just one more follow-up question. Do you know what day of the week Mr. Mercer, does he only do one day a week for all of the areas that he serves in North Manettville and Wolseley Bay, or is it more than one day a week? And if so, do you know what day of the week he provides that service?
My data is 23 years old when we set this up. I believe it was Saturday that he was working, but I can confirm that for you, Madam Mayor, and find out when he's actually there.
Okay. And I only ask that because, well, for Wolseley Bay specifically, but I would think for some other residents within the southern, edges of our municipality, it is many people who have cottagers or might only be there on the weekends. So, a Sunday or Monday or early in the week pickup, I would assume would work better for them, because one of the other concerns was, when you do Wednesday or Thursday, that means the garbage is sitting, if it is a cottager, the garbage is sitting out for 3 or 4 days before pickups. And that's just a note to you when you reach out to have those discussions.
Yeah, for you, I'm quite certain it isn't. And I think our complaints on stinky garbage would probably, we would probably know it. And so I believe that he's picking up at an opportune time.
Any other questions or comments?
Sorry, thank you through you. I was just wondering, is there any feasibility, or would it make any sense? I'm not too sure here. When it's just one of those blue bins that's communal and they're allowed to throw it in, and then it comes to get picked up every now and then, right? And then that would solve the issue of them having to drive a long distance. It could be in a public space that's accessible. But I know they get abused a lot.
Through you, Madam Chair, we certainly can look at options. We have to be careful with respect to residential waste in that manner, because it could be perceived as a waste transfer stations. And so there'd be some research to do. And I will say that the service that we've been providing has been adequate for the past while. I will also say that we are probably going to be looking at how we offer waste management services in the near future, say the next couple of years. But I would be careful to not raise an expectation right now that we can meet. We have a few of our trucks, as an example, they don't go that far. And so a big $500,000 truck with with two operators going there for one bin could become problematic. I know we go and get recycling there at the North Gwinnettville Hall, but going past that, that's probably a good half hour to 40 minutes after that. So sending one truck out there could be problematic unless we contract it out to somebody who's offering services in French River.
Any questions or comments? From here, could we give you time to reach out to Mr. Sullivan and perhaps come back to us with a solution or a couple of solutions?
Sure, through you, as I indicated to the mayor, I just need to know the magnitude of the problem. As I indicated, if it's Woolsey Bay, Mr. Mercer goes to Woolsey Bay. So, once I know the magnitude of the problem, then and find out where there's a gap in service, then we certainly would then have a proposal to council to address that gap.
From here, I would close this section and pass it back to Councilor Stoll.
Thank you. We will move on to the regular meeting portion of the agenda. 6.1 is our consent agenda.
It is moved by Councillor Tessier and seconded by Councillor Crochet. Be it resolved that the items on the consent agenda for November the 7th, 2023 be adopted as presented.
Any questions or comments on Gagné? Councillor Gagné?
Yeah, just a minute, please, Mr. Chair. I just need to look at the agenda for one specific item. If I may, if anybody has any other questions in the meantime.
I'll help them out.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I saw something I was just going to keep it for after the meeting and maybe ask Madame Ducharme myself, but I noticed on page 189, that's the zoning bylaw amendment for Marie Arcan, or Georges and Marie Arcan.
That's coming up.
Oh, that's part of the regular meeting as well.
This
Oh,
we're
okay.
talking about, I think, we're on the
Sorry.
consent agenda.
Okay, sorry. No, I can't help you. Councilor Carney, sorry.
Okay, I'm good, Mr. Chair.
All good?
In the consent agenda, item 6.4.1, is that part of the consent agenda, Mr. Chair?
That the approved level of service policy for winter maintenance?
That's correct.
No, that's not part of the consent agenda.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. I'll wait my turn.
And just for those watching, just for clarification, the consent agenda has two items, minutes of council and committee of the whole from October 17th and minutes of the accessibility advisory committee of April 24th. Any other comments or questions on those under the consent agenda? All those in favor? Carried. Next item we have is under 6.2 planning.
It is moved by Councillor Crochet and seconded by Councillor Tessier. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2023-82 being a bylaw to authorize the execution of a subdivision agreement with Memquissit Lodge Limited shall come into force and take effect on the day it is passed.
Any questions or comments on that item? Seeing any, all those in favor? Carried.
It is moved by Councillor Tessier and seconded by Councillor Crochet. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2023-83 being a bylaw to authorize the execution of a subdivision agreement with Georges and Marie Arcan shall come into force and take effect on the day it is passed.
Thank you for that. Questions or comments on that agenda item? Not seeing any. All those in favor? Carried.
It is moved by Councillor Crochet and seconded by Councillor Tessier. Whereas a public meeting was held on June the 10th, 2019 for the purpose of considering a proposed amendment to the zoning bylaw, and whereas no written concerns or objections were received to the proposed amendment, be it resolved that the Planning Advisory Committee for the West Nipissing Municipality has recommended the Council for the West Nipissing Municipality adopts the proposed zoning bylaw to rezone a portion of the property described as part of lots 11 and 12, concession 6 being parts 2 and 9 on Plan 36R 13788 in the Township of Springer, and that Schedule E43 of bylaw number 2014-45 shall be amended by changing the zoning designation of the property shown from rural to shoreline exception zone 8.
Questions or comments on that? I have Councillor Rivard, and then we'll go to Madame Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So on page 189, where the table that mentions special provisions, I just noticed lot 5, front yard setback required is the 18 meter because front yard on shoreline is the waterfront. And then it shows proposed exception 9.9. I understand there's an existing building, so that's why, but do these bylaws also state that if there's a new building, it would have to meet that 18 meter setback, or does this kind of say that it'd be allowed to be within 9.9?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we do have in our existing, in the zoning bylaw proper, provisions about removal, demolition, and voluntary demolition of legal non-conforming structures. So in this case, would that they were to take down one of those structures, it would have to comply to the best of its ability. We also have some language that recognizes that if there's a field bed in the way or a giant rock, to the best of their ability to comply.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor?
My question was similar in regards to the setbacks, that the setback exemptions were being made for existing structures on these lots?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you for those responses. All those in favor? Carried. It's the end of planning under the agenda. We've done nothing under correspondence. Next item is unfinished business, and we have approved level of service policy for winter maintenance.
It is moved by Councillor Tessier and seconded by Councillor Cochain. Whereas Council considered a level of service policy for winter maintenance at the September 19th, 2023 meeting, be it resolved that the level of service policy for winter maintenance be approved as presented, and be it further resolved that the level of service policy for winter maintenance shall form part of the municipal policy manual.
Are there comments or questions on that item? Councillor Gagne and Councillor Tessier.
Yes, and I'm not 100% sure how we can move this forward. I did request, there's a few questions by some council members. One was in regards to the cost of snow removal on private roads, which I haven't received yet. And also wanted to know what other snow removal that we do for other organization. It was mentioned that we did approve to do the snow removal for the Legion. We're currently doing the snow removal for the Field Church parking lot. And I also had requested, is there any other snow removal that we're doing that maybe wasn't part of the document? Those items are missing. I think snowfall is happening most likely tomorrow night, I think. And I know we want to move forward with this. It's going to help us, but can we defer, or are we allowed to at least move this forward, but to have further discussions to the items that are outlined and missing that information? Through you, Mr. Chair, maybe to Mr. Barbeau or something.
You, Mr. Chair, certainly you can do it either way. It's really not going to affect level of service. Is confirming the level of service that we offered, and I do apologize. I wasn't. I do remember the question. I understand we did have some discussions at the staff level, and it probably just slipped away. So certainly we can get that back. I do remember having an issue of a cost per kilometer. It's not that simple an analysis we just to have that way. So we'd be giving a best estimate. But we could certainly bring back the questions without But if it affects your decision on altering this policy, then a motion to defer can happen. So if you're planning on not of altering the policy within the next 2 weeks after receiving information and debating something that you don't think should exist in this policy, then my recommendation would be to defer it. If you don't see that happening, then I would approve the level of service policy, and we'll bring you back the information you require.
Okay, thank you. So, Mr. Chair, may I continue, Mr. Chair?
You sure can.
Okay, thank you. So I'd like to defer this matter until we do get the information, because I think we do need to have a discussion in regards to private road snow removal, please.
So, seconder to the motion. The mayor?
Yeah.
A motion to defer. It is moved by Councillor Gagne and seconded by Mayor Rochon that the matter of the approval of the level of winter service policy for winter maintenance be deferred.
Just a technical point, we're going to refer it back to committee. So deferring is to a point in time. Referring goes from a council meeting to the committee portion. So it'll be a motion to refer back to committee for the information you request. Okay.
Motion has to go to the floor.
What's that?
I think because it's the motion's already been tabled, it has to be deferred.
No, you can have a motion to refer.
So what do we do then with the vote?
The motion to refer is the same as a motion to defer. It's just the difference is you're sending it back to committee is all.
Oh, it's not going back to committee of the whole.
It's going back to committee. So.
Question.
Yes.
And we
Can I
can't discuss
still-
it now that it's been deferred.
So we can. Okay. So we'll have to have that question or discussion once it goes down.
Yeah.
So I wasn't clear. Are we voting on this or it's?
Yeah, you're voting to refer it to committee.
Okay. All those in favor of referring to committee for this particular item? Carried. Now we're on to 6.5 new business.
It is moved by Councillor Rivard and seconded by Councillor Nicol. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2023-85, being a bylaw to adopt a tree canopy and natural vegetation bylaw, shall come into force and take effect on the day it is passed.
Comments or questions on this? Seeing any, all those in favor? Carried.
Thank you, Councillor Rivard, for bringing it forward.
You're welcome.
Item. It is moved by Councillor Nicol and seconded by Councillor Rivard. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2023-86, being a bylaw to amend bylaw 2017-39, shall come into force and take effect on the day it is passed.
Comments or questions on this item? Seeing any, all those in favor? Carried.
It is moved by Councillor Rivard and seconded by Councillor Nicol. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2023-87, being a bylaw to appoint a deputy clerk for the West Nipissing municipality, shall come into force and take effect on the day it is passed.
Questions, comments? Seeing any, all those in favor? Carried.
It is moved by Councillor Nicol and seconded by Councillor Rivard. Be it resolved that the 2023 third quarter variance financial report for the West Nipissing municipality be received.
Questions or comments on this one? Not seeing any, all those in favor? Carried. That ends the new business portion of the agenda.
Yeah, Councillor, I will read Councillor Tessier's notice of motion.
This motion.
Yes, so we have a notice of motion made by Councillor Tessier, which reads as follows. Whereas homeless individuals have no shelter or access to a warming centre in West Nipissing, and whereas No More Tears West Nipissing has been working and helping homeless individuals since February of 2023 and has created an outreach day-night team as well as a soup kitchen. And whereas West Nipissing residents and organizations have supported and kindly donated help to No More Tears West Nipissing homelessness initiatives. And whereas Our Lady of Sorrows Church has provided access to their hall and kitchen to the No More Tears West Nipissing Soup Kitchen for preparation and serving of meals to those in need. And whereas the season of cold weather is upon us and the homeless have no warming center for cold days and nights. And whereas No More Tears West Nipissing is seeking council's assistance to help homeless individuals in our community. And whereas No More Tears West Nipissing has been advocating for a shelter in West Nipissing and is aware that it will not happen overnight. And whereas No More Tears West Nipissing is seeking that council establish an ad hoc committee to ensure encampments are not removed by force until an alternative solution is established. And whereas the municipality of West Nipissing contributes $3 million per year to the DSAB, could set aside a percentage to be allocated strictly for homelessness initiatives. Be it resolved that due to the critical need to help homelessness, West Nipissing bylaw will not evict any homeless person from municipal property until a warming center is established. So this motion will be brought to the next meeting of council for a vote.
I'm going to ask if she'd like, Mayor Rochon, if you have anything you'd like to report? No? Okay. It doesn't say deputy mayor's report, so I'm not allowed to say anything else. That's okay. We are moving on.
Okay, it is moved by Councillor Rivard and seconded by Councillor Nicol. Be it resolved that pursuant to Section 239 of the Municipal Act, that we proceed into closed meeting as authorized in Section 239 to discuss the following: personal matters about identifiable individuals, including municipal or local board employees, concerning human resources positions.
All those in favor? Carried.
All right, so we're moving into closed session. So I'll turn off the live stream.